So can the stock market really make you rich? So based on my experience as a financial advisor, I'm going to discuss what you can realistically expect from investing, but also go over potential scams and look at what successful investors do differently than the others that typically do. So stay to the end to find out what the most successful people have in common here. All right, so let me talk about my experience as a financial advisor as well as a stock coach, because this is something I've seen over the last 20 plus years. Now, I'm no longer a financial advisor. I'm the anti-financial advisor, right? And I don't do stock coaching anymore. That's something that I did more back in the 2000s. It's so interesting when I got to see what was happening. First, as a financial advisor, is that I would sit down with clients and I always taught you that you're gonna see 10, 12% rates of return and the sky's the limit. Now, I'd always have the disclaimer, of course, saying that past performance does not indicate future results. But I would say, but look at history. Look at back to 2000 BC, before, cavemen walked the earth and all that stuff. Like, look, the stock market's always been amazing, right? And it's always been like 10, 12%. But in truth, it really hadn't been. And it took me several years as being a financial advisor to learn that the actual rates of return versus the average rates of return are different. For example, average rates of return, you might have heard this example before, but this is an example I heard as a financial advisor after being in the business for 3 years. And just so you know, I was in a room with over 50 financial advisors and we all got this question wrong. So this trainer came in and of course he's basically telling us how to sell products to you. He comes in and he says, okay guys, let's just say you have $100,000 and you lose 50%. You lose half. What do you have? And of course, we're all like, we're geniuses. $100,000 cut in half, $50,000, right? And so he says, all right, guys, good job. Minus 50%. We'll put that on the board here. Okay, now, what's the rate of return you need to make to get back to $100,000? And we all in unison yelled out, 50%. And he says, wrong. That's incorrect because, look, he says 50,000, 50%, so you make half of that, that's 25,000. So it only gets you back up to $75,000 at 50% return. He says, guys, you didn't even make it back yet, did you? And we're like, what? No, minus 50 plus 50, that should be right. He says, no, you need 100% return to get back up to $100,000. And we were like, oh, well, that makes sense. Double, 100%, got it. He says, but look at the average return, guys. If that's happened in 2 years, not likely, but let's just say it did, minus 50 plus 100. And we're going back to our math here. Sorry, guys, there's a little math here. But you do that, you have 100 minus 50 equals 50. Divided by 2 years, and that's a 25% average rate of return. He says, guys, you realize that this is actually the numbers that you've been giving to people, is that's the average return, not the actual yield. Blew our minds. It actually, for weeks, we were just completely like starting to run numbers again and say, what's the real rate of return of the market? Guess what it is, guys? It's not 10 or 12%. It's closer to right now about just over 7.5% for the last 30 years. If you're looking at the S&P 500, 7.6 to 7.7, 7.5, just depends on when you're watching this video, but it's roughly usually between 7 and 8%. That's it. Not 10, not 12. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, no wonder our clients are having a hard time. And that's what I noticed. After 4 years, I quit being a financial advisor because I realized that people weren't able to become financially independent. They didn't have enough money because you start putting in the financial calculator, say you put in 7%. By the way, most people rarely ever get the market returns. So if you put in, say, 7% into that and you start putting in the numbers you've been saving, and then you put in inflation more than like 2 or 3%, which is bull. We know it's all more than that. Easily put in at least 5% long term. Since really the 1970s, when we got taken off the gold standard, 5% is a very conservative number. Put that number in and then see how much money you have after inflation. It's scary, guys. This is what got me to quit as a financial advisor. Now, I kept on as a stock coach. I kept teaching people to do that. Why? Because I knew they had a better chance investing on their own. But here's what I found out. I had coached one-on-one 200 different people. Here's what's interesting. I gave them very good strategies, like very conservative strategies to make sure that they actually made profits and made money. All they had to do was follow the plan. The crazy thing is because humans aren't computers, they're emotional, right? Humans make emotional mistakes. What I found is that only about really not even 5% of people remain successful when I wasn't keeping them accountable all the time. Now, if they were working with me, they were doing great on their trades, doing awesome. But when I wasn't holding their hand anymore, and I wasn't giving them advice, but I would help keep them accountable to sticking to those trading rules, then they would make money. When they were not accountable anymore, they lost money. And so what I found out is even people that went investing on their own, it was rare that even barely 5% of people became successful in those kind of programs, investing in stocks and options on their own. So my point is this, guys, is that people rarely get rich either investing in mutual funds or even investing on their own in stocks and options. It's very, very rare. Not to mention, it's really hard to do that. So here's what I found. In my experience, the best investors, what do they make? The best stock traders that I ever saw. These are not the mutual fund people. Mutual funds, you're pretty much stuck, right? But people that invest in stocks, the best investors, including Warren Buffett, who's more of a business buyer than investor, or guys like George Soros, who is more of an investor, the best that these guys have done, 24, 25%. And in my experience, even looking at the best in the industry, some of the best stock traders, usually if they make at least 20% a year, they're considered one of the world's best investors. 20%. Not 100%, not 200%, that's not it. If they're making at least 20, 25% a year, they're incredible. Most people don't even make money in the market. Most people end up losing money instead of making it when they try to do it on their own. But even the best investors don't make massive amounts of money. They're still making 20, 25%, and they don't have the ability to go and borrow money like you could do with real estate investing, right? You don't have that ability to create more leverage and arbitrage. Now, here's a bonus tip for you guys. I just thought of this before because I said you usually won't see investors making more than like 20, 25% a year. Beware of these 10% a month scams. Every once in a while, I have people come to me and say, hey, Chris, I found this great guy. He invests in options and they make 10% a month, or they invest in crypto and they make 10% a month. And they pay us, they make more than 10% a month, but they pay us 10% a month. It's incredible the amount of money I'm making. 100% of the time, these things will be shut down. You will lose all your money, guaranteed. I've seen it time and time and time again. Not once are these things sustainable, because even if they could be legitimate, which they aren't, but even if they could be, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, will come in and say, whoa, that's too high of a return, and they will shut them down, freeze their accounts, and you end up losing your money. You're lucky when the SEC gets involved because of how they freeze accounts and what they do with it. A lot of times you end up losing more money because they get involved. So you don't want to be in these kind of 10% a month scams. If you're looking at one of these things, I can't give you investment advice, but I would say check yourself before you wreck yourself, if I'm going to quote a famous rapper, okay? So be aware of these 10% a month scams. Okay, so now let's get to it. What do the most successful stock investors have in common? Here's what I found out. The 5%, or really less than 5% that I saw that did this, here's what they all had in common. They invested not to make money. They actually invested because they had fun doing it. They loved it, whether they didn't care if they made any money or not. They loved it. They wanted to eat, sleep, and do this kind of investing. They just enjoyed it. It was a passion for them. It was almost like a hobby. And it wasn't like a hobby just to make money. It was a hobby because it was just fun for them. Most of the people I coached, they weren't doing this just so that they could have some fun. They were doing this because they were trying to escape something. They were trying to escape having to keep working their 9-to-5 job, or 9-to-9 job, depending on the person. They were trying to escape having to make money. I even had people tell me, you know what, the reason I'm doing this is because I don't have to deal with people anymore. I just want to sit behind a computer and make money. Guys, I will just tell you this, the quickest way to make money, the best investors, what they all have in common, not just stock investors in general, is that they know the secret to making more money is how can you go about creating value for other people? How do you go about serving people, solving problems in a way that allows you to make money? Because money is the exchange as a result of that value that you're creating. That is what they have in common. So stock investors, really, they're just got to be good gamblers because they enjoyed it. They loved it, and because they loved it so much, they had so much passion for it, they kept doing it, they kept getting better at it. As a result, they made money. But again, it's so rare. And even when they do, I will tell you this, is that many of them will come back to us later and say, hey, I'm making good money in the stock market, but I'm not making passive income. I still have to sit behind my computer. I still have to do all this work. It's really like having a part-time job. What can I do to actually do this better? That's where passive income comes in. Okay, guys. These are my big rules. This is the big thing I've learned, but I hope you learned something from it as well. If you think this is great, check out the rest of this Make You Rich series that we have here.